Ah, you're back. Or should I say rather, I'm back. This tends to happen every so often, so you have to forgive me. I tend to planeswalk away from months at a time and then just appear back. Never fear though, I always return, and with my Vorthos muscles fully intact. Speaking of which, let's situate ourselves back into the lore. Last episode, we put foot down on the ground of the plane of Dominaria, heralded as the nexus of the multiverse. With a general overview of Dominaria covered in last episode, we can uncover the immense history etched into the plane, beginning with the scars Nicol Bolas carved into its flesh. So, Nicol Bolas, as a byproduct of the first Planeswalker duel on Dominaria with this unknown demonic Leviathan, decimated a substantial portion of the chain of islands collectively known as the Empire of Madara. The radius of destruction was so enormous, in fact, that this event marked the first occurrence of a temporal rift. In the wake of this victory, Nicol Bolas devoured the remains of his felled foe until little remained. He erected the Talon Gates using the scant remains of his conquered victim upon the battlefield as a monument. To this day, Nicol Bolas returns to the Talon Gates to bask in that victory. Unfortunately for the inhabitants of Madara, the cataclysmic destruction was merely Nicol Bolas flexing his muscles. 3 veins of blue, black, and red mana converge at a single point within Madara's geography. Being a planeswalker with an affinity for these colours of mana, the focal point of their meeting would be an ideal foothold for Nicol Bolas to have within Dominaria. Empowered by the conquest over the Leviathan, he headed for the intersection of mana within Madara. The Empire of Madara was under rule and protection of a warrior queen, who beheld herself a god empress. At this time, the Mandarin Empire was culturally akin to the oriental nature of the Edo Shogun era of the Japanese eras on Earth. Aside from quelling the occasional rebellion from neighbouring isles, Madara was genuinely peaceful. Needless to say, this changed when Nicol Bolas sowed his calamity from the Planeswalker duel and then fancied Madara a base of operations. Before being able to initiate any machination, he had to anchor himself at the convergence of mana. Nicol Bolas had grown so immeasurably powerful that this was a necessary step to prevent Dominaria cracking at its very foundations from his sheer presence. His next order of business, then, was to dethrone the Empress, or to put it simply, outright slay her. Thus he achieved something the Empress was only able to self-style. He had become a true God Emperor of Madara. To crown this achievement, he built the Imperial Shrine on top of the intersection of mana veins he drew from, and here he was able to manifest his presence, be it partially, and grant audiences to his subjects. He ruled the Empire of Madara for around 400 registered years. This was primarily done through 3 proxies he assigned: the Imperial Assassin, the Imperial Champion, and the High General of the Kentsu, the Imperial Army. Each of these proxies served under Nicol Bolas, and when they died or failed him, another in their class simply fulfilled their position. The final players in these positions at the tail end of Nicol Bolas' 400-year rule played a pivotal role in ending it in its entirety. The Imperial Assassin, Ramses Overdark, the High Ketsu General, Mahel Elsdragon, and the Imperial Champion, Tetsuo Umezawa. All bar Ramses Overdark were loyal to Nicol Bolas entirely. In his disloyalty to Nicol Bolas, Ramses schemed to amass his own power by strategically manoeuvring himself and his minions into positions of authority in the structure of the Empire. The end game was to overthrow the Emperor himself when the time was just so. Any command Nicol Bolas gave was a potential opportunity to further this strategy. Tetsuo Umezawa, in particular, was a roadblock in achieving this. During the neighbouring Endemi Island uprising, Ramses saw an opportunity to take Tetsuo out of the picture and replace the Imperial Champion with one of his own. This attempt failed horrifically. Success was to come to Ramses later, however, when a minion of his own, the second in command of the Ketsu army, beheaded General Elsdragon and claimed the title of Imperial General during a military coup. Never caught unawares, Nicol Bolas visited his Imperial Assassin, armed with the knowledge of what had been done. Yet, instead of punishing him, Nicobolus praised Ramses, citing his ambition as impressive. Nicobolus shrugged the dismantlement of his imperial structure off by saying it was simply obsolete. Ramses was awarded the title of imperial regent thereafter. This in turn enraged Tetsuo Amazawa. His friends and comrades had been casualties of Ramses' deadly chess game and Nicobolus's punishing commands. He renounced his title of imperial champion and vowed revenge against Ramses and Bolus both. Needing time to prepare, Tetsuo took refuge in the Meditation Realm, a pocket plane used by high-ranking officials of the Madaran Empire. It takes a considerable amount of talent in mana manipulation to even gain access to the realm, but this was a trivial task for Tetsuo. Here he meditated, trained, and bode his time. Ramses Overdark, however, wasn't content to allow Tetsuo to meditate. He ordered a Ketsu regiment to sow havoc in lands in the Madaran Empire close to Tetsuo's homeland and his heart. The attack was repelled by the natives, but in turn it galvanized Tetsuo into coming out of hiding and enacting his revenge. He made way to the Imperial Shrine to confront Ramses and Nicobolus. A sizable slice of the Ketsu army defended the shrine. Tetsu continued to walk towards the shrine, into the jaws of the force. Without averting his eyes from the doors of the Imperial Shrine, Tetsuo called down a damning rain, a meteor shower, levelling the Imperial army in instants. It was at this point Ramses and Bolus both realised they may have just created their own worst enemy. Inside the shrine, Tetsuo and Ramses faced off, one-on-one. Ramses was exactly formidable, and if Tetsuo had neglected to ask a trusted ally to eradicate the stronghold of Overdark's mana drawing, the battle may have ended very differently. Denied of his wealthy source of mana, Ramses was felled by Tetsuo and his considerable spells. Ramses' power was then siphoned into Tetsuo himself. Augmented with Overdark's power, Tetsuo turned his attention to Nicobolus. The ground of their duel was not to be the Imperial Shrine, however. That would be the Meditation Realm, where Tetsuo lured Bolus to. Following Tetsuo to the pocket plane was a critical mistake on Bolus's part, as while there, a meteor with the heart of a warhammer roared down upon the Imperial Shrine. Tetsuo's meteor hammer spell rendered the shrine to not more than smoke and ash, and severed the rope of the anchor Bolus needed to keep his foothold in Dominaria. His power torn by Tetsuo, Nicobolus himself was conquered and killed. Thus, the tyrannical reign of Emperor Bolus was ended. In the aftermath of the deconstruction of the old regime, the Empire of Madara was thrown into chaos. The remaining Ketsu were bought by nobles like mercenaries for protection. The neighbouring isles, namely the rebellious Endemi Isles, demanded compensation for the destruction brought to their lands, and the oppressed natives there made moves to improve their place in the overall Madaran Empire. Tetsuo had his work cut out for him if he wished to heal the injured Madara, and he wanted to do exactly that. He reunited with friends and comrades who spurred him into becoming the Emperor of the Wounded Empire. It is unknown whether Tetsuo did indeed become seated as the Emperor of Madara. What is known for certain, though, is that he was steadfast in seeing its return to its former glory. Okay, so there you have it. That is the lore of the Empire of Madara, of course abridged, but it's one of the first chronological pieces of the, Dominaria's enormous lore. In the scope of the overarching lore, one of the kind of finer details to take away is the fact that someone actually killed the Nicobolus. Yes, he is actually dead at this point. Dead. I said conquer, but that was just a flowery way of saying, yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good and dead. So you probably already know that Nicobolus is still gleefully stirring malice around the multiverse in the recent lore, so it stands to reason he somehow comes back, and you'd be right to think that, obviously. However, keeping our focus steady for now, the next episode will be undertaking more of Dominaria lore. I kid you not, with even more dragons, known as the Primevals, who have a turn at ruling Dominaria. I promise you I'm not cherry-picking dragon-centric lore, because it's May, this is actually what happens. The people of Dominaria never really get a break, which is terrible for them, but it's like a Vorthos buffet for us, really. Until next time, keep releasing your untapped potential.